You're not going to want to miss today's podcast. On the water table today, I interview Tim and Patty Kringle. We're talking everything about their business, life, and life lessons learned. Please join me today on the water table. Well, welcome back to the Water Table Podcast. Today I have a couple of guests and been really excited about the opportunity to interview Patty Kringle and her son Tim Kringle. I have known Patty and Tim for roughly 25 years. Don't get to see Patty all that often, but Tim more often. They're friends. They are customers of Prinsco, and I think the heartbeat and the backbone of the drainage industry and of rural America and what you guys are doing and trying to do out there with employing people and running a great business. So, Patty, Tim, welcome to the Water Table Podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Jamie.
So, what I wanted to do today is you got a storied history, your family, and you have, Tim, a mom that's pretty special and quite a dynamo, so to speak. And so just ask some questions, share some stories about your family, your business. And I think the best way to do that is probably to start kind of at the beginning, Patty. Would you talk a little bit about how your business got started? And, were you there in the beginning, or how did you enter that?
No, I wasn't. My husband and I met on July 4th, 1953. And that's the year that his father, Chuck, and a friend, we called him Big Dad O'Connor, decided to buy a tiling machine because my husband came from a family of 5 brothers. So my father-in-law didn't have a lot of money, so he furnished the boys, and Big Dad bought the Vermeer tiling machine. That's the first machine they had, and a small backhoe, and then they had to use lots of shovels and spades because it wasn't so easy in those days. And they continued that business for... Well, let's see. In 1954, Harold and Gary and 2 other men were hired for that Vermeer. But then in 56, Gary, who was eventually a partner of Harold's, had to go in the service for 2 years. So Harold stayed with Kringle and O'Connor, they called it, till 56. And then when Gary came home from the service in 58, my husband decided that, I wasn't married yet, but he decided that this couldn't continue. We weren't making any money. So in 58, they bought out Kringle and O'Connor. He didn't have to pay his dad anything because he didn't have any money in it, but we had to pay Big Dad, they called him. But so they started their business then, and by that time, we were married, and we lived in a house that didn't have a hot tub, didn't have a bathtub or hot water. That's how poor we were. Mm-hmm. And we just kept going, and business started flourishing, and we eventually bought more equipment, and the machines... we had a Buckeye. That's what they had in those days, was a Buckeye tiling machine.
Yeah.
And, of course, I didn't want to do the bookwork. I graduated from the Minnesota School of Business, but I didn't want to be a bookkeeper. I was a secretary. So Harold wanted me to do the books, but I said, I'm not going to do that. I'd rather be a bartender or a waitress than do those books. But he encouraged me. Yeah. And I kind of took hold. I made a few mistakes at first. I mean, I billed a guy, and it was wrong. We didn't make any money, but Harold had to go out, and he did get the money. But anyway, I took a hold on it, and I loved it. So
just for listeners, I didn't mention that, but Mapleton, Minnesota is where you reside and kind of where you started. And were you from Mapleton too, or just the Kringle family?
No, I was in Mapleton. We lived 5 miles south of Mapleton.
Okay. So you
My husband was from Good Thunder.
okay.
Yeah.
Close though.
Yeah,
Real close.
Yeah.
close.
Yeah.
And we stayed there. But then later, in a couple of years, we got a house, a decent house. We traded a bean field for a basement.
Okay.
And, well, that's what we did in those days.
Yeah. And the interesting thing as we move forward, just as part of what helps make the idea of getting into that business successful is Mapleton, south of Mankato, 20 miles roughly, just a real fertile ground. And it does seem like there is more moisture that moves through that particular area of Minnesota.
It's very wet.
Yeah, very wet. And so we can talk about that, Tim, as we go on. And that's one of the first times I ever met you. You probably don't remember that, but it was a very difficult spring, and you were replacing a 24-inch main. And you were deep, and there was a lot of water, and just a challenge. And at that time, it was easy for me because I could walk up into a situation that you weren't very happy that day or that whole spring, but the relationship that you had with Kent Rodelius, which was our ag segment lead at the time, and had been your salesman, had really worked with the Kringle family. We'll talk about that for a long time, but that relationship, carried a lot of trust both ways, and so that was my entrance into meeting you guys. And that even though Tim was upset, Patty, that was an easier, less scary, let's call it, meeting than the first time I met you. So you used to have that big dog.
Well, that was his dog. That's a Great Dane.
Yeah.
Samson. Yeah.
Samson, yeah. Kent and I were talking earlier. What was the name of that dog again? We couldn't remember, but it was Samson. But he'd sit in your office by you and very intimidating, trying to sell you pipe.
Harold just hated that dog.
Yeah, a 200-pound Great Dane. He was big and didn't let many people by.
He was protective of me.
Yeah, for sure. So sorry, I kind of backtracked there, but wanted to make sure people understood kind of the start and where that was in Mapleton. So now you're married. You're starting to see some financial success and of the hard work starting to pay off. You move into a better spot and still probably don't have kids at that point, right?
No, we had Debbie and Cindy. Debbie is our oldest daughter. She's 10 years older than Tim, and just retired. But her husband owns the Land of Dreams, water, hot tubs, and he's got stores in Minneapolis. And actually, they're semi-retired, and they're in Arizona with their 3 horses. They ride horses.
Nice.
And have dogs. And then Cindy, she's a couple years younger than Debbie. She's married too, and she has works at the University of Santa Barbara. She's their caterer for quite a few of the sorority homes. So they live in Santa Barbara, California. So we don't get to see her as often.
No, you get out there a little bit.
Not very often. Not very often.
You're too busy. You got to work.
Well, I like to be home. Especially in the winter, unless we'd go someplace. But the winter time is my time to read a book. So I like to read. And I have a lot of book work because we have some farms, and I keep very busy with that. You want to buy a farm? We'll buy one together and we'll tile it out.
Yeah. And then we'll make a bunch of money on it.
Yeah,
Everybody wants a good tiled farm, right?
Right, and they'll pay the rent. You got the money, honey, I'll pay the rent.
Yeah.
Whatever, but yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
But Tim didn't stroll along till 10 years later.
Okay. What year were you born, Tim?
1967.
So
So you'd been in it. Kringle Brothers was incorporated in 1964, I believe.
Okay.
Right. That's
So
Okay. So it was right, around 1960 that things started to really do well, and then you incorporated. So tell me a little bit about kind of those early years and what that looked like, type of work you're doing, and
in the 60s. Well, we branched. We did a lot of tiling. It was starting really good then, but we branched out into sewer and water, and we bought more big backhoes, But I wanted to tell you about when we bought our first backhoe. Harold went to the bank in Mapleton, and he wanted to borrow $7,500 to buy a Shield Bantam backhoe. And it was an Army surplus one. And the banker wouldn't borrow us the money. He said, can that backhoe have little backhoes? If it would have had a pig or a cow, why, we could have got the money. But so he couldn't get the loan, so he walked across the street and was looking very sad. And he met the brother of Big Dad O'Connor, who was a bachelor. And he says, Harold, you look so down. What the hell's the matter with you? And Harold says, well, I couldn't get enough money to borrow a backhoe. And that guy, Lonnie, looked at him and he says, how much do you need? Harold says, I need $7,500. We'll write a note out. We'll give it to you today. So we got that. That's how we started in the bigger mains and the sewer and water.
yeah. When do you think that was? Do you remember?
Well, that was in the 60s. Yeah. Or, no, I was a little before that.
Yeah, yeah.
We paid the note back.
Yeah,
Anyway.
for sure.
And we bought the banker's car later. It was a 1948 Chevy, a black one, and they used it for tiling. So,
Really?
because they didn't have no pickups.
Yeah.
So it was, not easy sledding for a while,
Yeah.
but we managed.
Yeah.
I worked for a lawyer part-time in between.
there weren't too many other tiling contractors back in the 60s in our area, and it's a tremendously big area to take it to do. So I remember stories about Mom and Dad saying, we had to go up to Nicollet from Mapleton. That's about say 40 miles. I couldn't imagine how they would get the equipment up there. Thing is, I still have these customers today. We still get up in that area wherever we have to go, but it's continued on from the beginning, generation after generation. I'm taking care of some of the great-grandkids of some of the initial people from when I started, and that all attributes to how Mom and Dad started the business and ran it, and my Uncle Gary was in it too, but the tradition of being honest and doing a good job and putting a good product in the ground, I think that made our reputation to where it is now.
Yeah, and when you have those good qualities about you and characteristics, and you're consistent with them over decades, it obviously, if that changes, it only takes a few times to do things wrong for people to recognize that, and it takes a lifetime to grow that. But you and Harold growing that into your kids over your lifetime is really, it's quite a name in that area of Minnesota, and you guys should be, I know you are, and you should be really proud of it.
We are, we are.
I remember as a kid, maybe 5 years old, I'd be down at the shop, and I would paint. My job was to be painting catch basins orange. Well, I got carried away with a brush. I also wanted orange pants and orange arms, so I painted my whole everything orange, and all the guys were down there watching me do it, and finally it came to be lunchtime where I had to go home to eat, and they saw me and they said, we can't take you home to Patty like this. So they put me in the parts washer and they scrubbed me up with all that stuff, and got my pants, those yellow pants didn't make it, but otherwise. That's how it was back then. And you guys had 15 or 16 employees
Yeah, we did.
at one time, 4 crews running 3 tiling machines. That was pretty big. Now with the plows, and you hear about it all the time, but we've gone now down to 3 people, 4 if we are lucky and get a part-timer. And we're putting as much footage in the ground as they did back then. A little different story on how equipment is now, but we still work hard.
Yeah, you can be very efficient with,
And very
with that
efficient,
one machine. And Patty, tell me a little bit about, what Tim just said with the 16 employees. I've heard, kind of that back in that day, when you start to do that, you got a lot going on every day, right? You got people going different directions, and now you have a management team kind of, and not the people that aren't in the machine, but they're managing all this. And from what I heard, you were making breakfast for everybody, and you probably still do.
Yeah,
But
did
tell
this
me
morning.
about that. You did this morning. So, and it's not very late, and you had to drive 2 hours. So
It's all right. I
let's
get up
talk
at
about that.
4:30 in the morning. But yeah, we used to. I took it to the shop though. I delivered it to the shop. Take some egg coffee and hot sandwich and something sweet. And then I have my own chair.
What time of the day would that be?
Well, I get to the shop by 6:45
Okay.
in the morning.
And
but-
with all that stuff.
and I get up at 4:30.
Yeah.
But
So I know what it is, but I bet a lot of our listeners don't. But let's talk, and then we'll go back. But what in the heck is egg coffee? Tell
oh
that
my
story.
goodness sakes! I should have but some along.
Well, I actually thought about asking you to bring a thermos and let's have some on air here. But and now you say that, I'm feeling bad because I would have liked to have had some.
Egg coffee is just you've seen these old coffee pots on the cowboy shows, the old-fashioned
Yep,
coffee.
yep.
Well, that's what I have. I have at
Okay.
least 6 or 7, maybe 8. And you just fill it full of water, bring it to a boil, and stir up fresh ground coffee. You grind it,
Yep.
Separately.
separately.
Yeah.
And then you add an egg to it. And then you stir it up and moisten it.
Okay.
And when the water comes to a boil, then you dump that in there and stir it around, turn the fire down, and let it simmer a little bit, and let the coffee grinds float to the bottom.
Okay.
Add a little cold water and let it stew a little bit, and there it is, egg coffee.
All right.
It's not bitter.
It's potent, though.
Yeah, it was a little potent this morning, wasn't it?
Kept us going all the way to
Well, I've tried to make it. I haven't tried that. Like in a regular, just putting an egg in there and stirring it in with a filter, and it just doesn't. It's just not the same.
Well, actually, you could do that. You could mix it up with your egg and your coffee and just pour it over the filter, and then your water will drip through.
Yeah,
I think
but
you could try it.
Well, it works, but not the same.
I should have brought you a coffee pot,
I know.
and then okay, next time I will.
Next time, we'll 2.0 of the podcast. We'll do that. We'll do that.
Well, she'll bring the food to us in the morning and then go home, and she has 8 more people that come over for breakfast again. So she'll make them
Every day?
breakfast every day.
Who are those 8 people?
They're retired, lonely people.
Okay.
Whoever wants to come, comes.
Okay.
The mayor comes occasionally just to check on us. And, these people are 93 and 94 and right down to 8. Well, we're not going into my age right now today, are we? I'll be 87 in September.
Yeah.
So, and so I fix those people
So
breakfast.
that was going to be part of this in an order, but we're there now, so let's talk about it. Talk about this. We'll go back to the business and stuff, but at some point, when would you say you retired from your work to something? You didn't retire. You retired to another role
Right.
in life, and I kind of want to make that clear as we talk about, because you're doing a lot yet at almost 87. But when was that?
I started when Christy came, and she we traded places. But I got to be busy, so I had a lady stop by my house. Let's see, it must have been 25 years ago. Whenever Christy started, that's when I started Patty's Place.
That'd be my wife.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And so that was around 2000, Tim?
Yeah,
Okay,
98.
yeah. So and when did your husband Harold die?
2012.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had started that before. I didn't know about
Yeah.
and you call that Patty's Place. Explain what Patty's Place is, and then we'll.
Patty's Place is a private dining club
Okay.
in my home, but it's attached. Well, it's right in my home, but we just added on a building to it right away because it's successful. So I do private parties. It's got to be 12 or more, and it's elegant. Should have brought some pictures, I guess.
Well, I've been there. I've seen it.
oh,
I've been to a
oh,
couple of.
Okay.
Tim's had a couple of like local industry get-togethers there
Oh,
at different
okay.
times, but it's basically you did a big addition where you can have. How many can you have? What would be the most?
I
you'd
can
say?
seat up to 65.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
12's minimum, but you can get 65 people, and you pretty much have. I call it, would that be right? A commercial kitchen in there?
I have 3 kitchens.
Okay.
Yeah, and the big one is downstairs. But yeah, I have 3 kitchens, and nobody does the cooking but me.
So what happens when you get 60 people? I mean, how many?
Well, I
how
got
much
help.
Yeah, but how many do you have? And
Well, I
and
get
what when you say help, what does that mean? What do they do?
they serve,
Okay.
and they serve and help clean up.
Okay.
And I don't let anybody else cook in my kitchen, but
Yeah.
I just like to cook, and I'm busy, but I'm going to slow down this
Yeah.
year.
What does that mean?
That means I might not take as many parties.
How many you haven't? How many have you had like last year?
I don't know. I counted too many last year, but I would like to slow down a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah. So if I said to you, Patty, I want to have 25 people over 4 months from now at this time, and you decide what we're gonna have
I have
for dinner.
menus.
No, but
Oh.
what I'm wondering is what's like your favorite thing to make?
Well, the most popular thing on my menu is the sirloin roast beef au jus, and homemade mashed potatoes and gravy, and homemade fly off the plate rolls with honey, and any kind of dessert you want. It's all you can eat.
Why didn't I ask for some of that too today, right?
And she did mention that she thought she'd slow down this year, Jamie. I've been hearing that for probably the last 8 years, and this year she's very specific that she is done, not taking any more on. Well, I think I just heard her say something.
Well, I do have Seratoma coming in, but that's not till December.
So-
I have a few parties booked,
Yeah.
but it's hard going up and down the steps, and I have to cook down and then carry up myself. And that's the hardest part, but I could use the kitchen upstairs, but I'm used to the one downstairs because I lived down there when I took care of Harold White. It's handicapped.
Right.
So-
Right. So, it seems to me like, and you can just speak to this how you want, but your love for cooking and entertaining and relationships is also somewhat of your ability to give back and be somewhat of a ministry to others. When you talk about, your breakfast in the morning and having, your words a few minutes ago, 8 lonely people that show up, whoever wants to every day. And would that be accurate that that's kind of how you see this? It's just a way for you to.
Yeah, I'm a deacon in the church, and I get to give communion. I love to give communion to my kids, but then I have to get to church early, to get the communion cups ready. We were real active in Minlaika.
Yeah, I
and,
wanted
and,
to talk
national
about that.
too.
Yeah.
That was important to
Yeah,
us.
let's go back to the business, and then we'll jump back to LICA, which is Land Improvement Contractors of America Association. But so now you're in business, you're busy. It's running through the 70s. I think Tim, you graduated high school in the mid 80s. did some college, but I'm sure you're working in the summers and all that, and you kind of come back into the business. And what was that like to introduce your kids? And was that just a seamless transition for you guys, or was there any?
Well, he'd always helped his dad work in a way, but he graduated from Bethany, but then I always cried when he left, and then he'd come home in the summer, and then I'd cry because he was coming home. I thought, oh no, but then I'd cry when he left again. But and then he went to St. Cloud State after that, but he always worked with his dad, and they were tight. They made, I think he was driving that backhoe down the road when you were, I don't know how old, 10. Yeah, he grew up with it. He loved the soil.
Yeah, for sure.
It smells good.
Love to play in it.
Yeah.
Too.
Well, and you gotta have somewhat of a passion for parts of the business in order to keep it going, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I tell you, anybody that says being that is a tiler and doesn't like it, I can't believe it. I think everybody that tiles has to love it, because it's not an easy job. We do make it easier with technology, and the older I get, the better I get on a backhoe or something, just so I don't have to physically do as much. But if you're a steward of the land, you have to love it, and everything about it. Every picture on the way up here, I was just thinking, look at that tiling there. This ground needs some tile, and she go, oh, there's a tiling machine out there. It's been in our lives forever, and I'm so happy that I learned from what I will most definitely call a pioneer and the best. My dad was very, very adamant about doing things the right way, and even though you bury it, you got to live with that. You'll drive by that spot, and if that spot is wet, you did something wrong. You should have done it right. That's what I tell my employees too. And I've got a son now, Zach, who's 30, and he's been working with me since he's been about 17, on and off, and now he's just got married. And that's kind of when I took over, when I started having kids. The Tim that would tile, work hard, but not really have an interest in doing the whole thing.
Yeah.
Now I'm seeing that coming with Zach, because he's married and he's starting to have children. I got to get myself together here. I got to figure out what I'm going to do in life, and yeah, he's doing. I'm so happy and fortunate to be able to work with him every day.
And the responsibility that you see him taking, and it's got to be fun for you too to see that.
Well, of course it is. Yeah, Debbie, his sister. I have to tell this because she came to work for Kringle Brothers too, and she had to lay cement tile, and and the men gave her the awfulest jobs. She worked so hard, and she's quite petite, but she worked for one summer, and then but Cindy, that's her younger sister. She's not going to do that. So she never did that, but she had other plans. But they all knew what the business was.
Well, Tim probably wouldn't be working in the business either if he had to do concrete pipe all the time.
Well, listen,
that was hard work.
Yeah, we used to, when I started, I remember hooking them and throwing them down, or rolling 8-inch over, because they threw them off the truck too close to the machine. Rolling that 8-inch over when you're 12 or 11 years old, it seems like a big tile. So I remember, I was probably younger than that. I remember telling the operator, "Boy, I'm really sweating." He goes, "That means you're working hard. That's good." So, yeah, they from the beginning it was learned. You learn. You do your job, or go sit in the office somewhere.
I used to lay tile, cement.
Yeah.
I'd sit down in the boot, and I'd catch that tile.
Yeah.
We used to lay cement from Kelke over at New Richland.
Yeah.
And then we laid Mason City brick and tile. So I'd click a few of those in there.
Yeah.
Worked some just to know that I could do it.
Yeah.
But
and it's amazing how back in those days when it was just cement tile and concrete tile and clay tile, there were contractors that they would do in a week, what now they do in a week what they did in a whole year with the plastic, but just because it was that hard of work and moving that stuff. And so it really is remarkable. The biggest contractors back then, their dollar volume today would be very much on the smaller end of compared to what they do, just because of technology changes in plastic and all that. So anyone who knows how hard a work that is, really admires the people that have done it. So really admire you for that, Patty.
Oh, thanks.
So, I personally, unfortunately, didn't get to know Harold very well. But tell me, Tim, a little bit about your dad and, what maybe some of your fond memories or what you learned from him. And
Dad I remember him as being very quiet, very patient, very observant, and kind of like a fox. He didn't always act like he knew it all. Didn't brag or whatever you want to say, but he knew a lot more than what he let out. He was a brilliant man, and if I was half the man he was, I tell you, I loved my dad so much, and it was very hard to see him go. And I think that was one of the only times, and I've been so fortunate to have you guys take me up to Canada. I think 24 years I've been up there with Kent and yourself. And the one year that I didn't was the year that Dad looked like he might pass. I've learned a lot from him, Jamie. I don't even know where to start. I learned who I am as a person. I wish I could have learned more, because when I was younger, I thought I knew everything, like a lot of kids do. I didn't think I had to have to ask Dad until those mistakes came, until he got sick, and he couldn't really respond to me. And then I wished I would have asked him more, because after that, 25 years ago, I just said, I got to learn how to do this. I got to learn how to bid. I got to learn all the office work, and I got to learn how to everything over. And I realized how important he was before.
When did he get sick? What year would have that been?
It was right after our 40th wedding anniversary. So I took care of him for 14 years, and he died in 2012.
Yeah. So about when you kind of started, really, in '98, when you retired too from. You never retired, but when you.
But we had everything made handicapped, so I could take care of him at home. And it worked out okay.
Yeah.
There was good days and bad days.
He had Lewy body syndrome and Parkinson's. And he was probably 59 years old when he first started it, maybe.
Yeah, because
But he has 4 other brothers, and 3 of the 4 have the same Parkinson's and Lewy body. So it's a tough disease, and I've learned from Dad that you live every minute, because you don't know what's going to happen. I'm so fortunate that I have a strong faith in the Lord that He's going to take me in the right direction. And it's getting easier and easier for me, because in my heart, in my faith, I know He's going to take me to where I need to be. It makes my confidence so much higher. Because if I second guess, He doesn't want me to worry. And that's the thing Dad taught me too. Don't worry. The Lord says, don't worry. I'll take care of you. Things like that, Jamie. My faith, my just how I am as a person, knowledge about whatever I have, I'll share with anyone, whether it be right or wrong. Most people say, yeah, that's good advice. I think so anyway.
Well, that's really why we're here today, for the rest of us to get some good advice from Two wise people.
Not getting it too much for me. I'm not a very good influence, maybe.
Tim, where did you as you talk about your dad and those kind of things, where did you get your love for the outdoors? I know you like to fish, and you're an avid and really good mushroom hunter.
Yeah. Well, Mom and Dad purchased a farm that had 40 acres of woods on it, and Dad started clearing it. I was pretty young, probably 8, 9.
Yeah, we
7,
planted
8,
those
9.
walnut trees down there.
Yep. Cleared it out first. All winter long they'd be cutting the trees down, and I was out in the woods all winter long splitting wood. They'd bring the wood to me cut, and then I'd throw it in the wood splitter and start splitting, stack it up, and then they'd get it with the machines. Just being outside, having I get home from school and play in the snowdrift. I didn't want to be inside. Warm clothes, I'm fine. You had to pull me in at night probably. I remember putting water in culverts in the driveway and putting a dam there and blocking it off, and forgot one time and it flooded the garden. But yeah, I still to this day can't really be inside. I love the fresh air. I love the seasons, especially in Minnesota. So that's, I guess, since I was probably born, I've loved to be outside.
Why do you think you love the seasons? That's a loaded question. I was literally thinking about this on my way drive over here today. So,
well, as I get older and in the business that I am in, I love to see the tile lines starting to form when the frost comes out of the ground. So you can quick put a flag there so you save time locating. I love it, the harvest. I know it's close to the big season of ours to get out and get the machines rolling again out in the field. Summers, of course, we don't have as much work now in the summers, and that's by my choice. Money is nice to have, but your life and your grandkids and your kids are more important than anything to me. So the summers I get to spend a lot of time with my kids and grandkids. And then the falls, and then the winters, it's time to hibernate for a little bit and maybe do a vacation. That's what I like about that. I always look forward to the next season. Unless we have a big list to finish up, then I don't look forward to Christmas, the winter season.
Yeah.
But
And I think that's, I asked that as I was driving over to the studio here just an hour ago, and I was listening to the radio, and the question was, what brings you hope? And it just because it's a beautiful spring day and it was sunny and I just kind of struck me because that's not something I would normally say, but the changing of seasons, is something that I think those of us, especially that exactly what you said of all those things that have experienced the North Country, doesn't have to be Minnesota, but the North Country in the different seasons. It's always exciting to get that first snowfall and to see the hope in that, but then it's exciting to see a nice sunny day that's 60 degrees in the spring and the long summer days in the summer, and then my favorite is the fall for a number of reasons, but seeing all that come together in the fall and the harvest and the hustle and bustle, and then I like the outdoors and hunting too, so it's interesting, but I think that if you're from the upper Midwest, there has to be some of the love of the seasons or you don't like it.
Jamie, speaking of that, we've got about a month to go here until our mushrooms are going to be there. The ground temp, needs to come up.
Biggest mistake I made in this deal, Patty, is I should have waited like 6 weeks so he'd bring me a big basket of mushrooms. So.
Yeah.
Or else.
Yeah, he's good at that, isn't he? What do you do with them? Does he bring you a bunch, or do you care for them or not?
I love them.
Yeah, me too.
Fry them in butter.
Yeah. Eat them straight, right?
Eat them straight, or make
steak would be good.
a steak or soup.
Soup.
Or pie.
Pie.
Got a great morel pie recipe.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
We put them to good use.
I got to get my calendar out and come that way in May for some egg coffee and morel pie.
Oh, that would be wonderful. We'd love that. Yes.
Yep. You'd have to get out in the woods though with me. Oh. I would save a area if I knew you were coming down. I always tell that to Kent too, but I had them down once, but we were somehow on the wrong property, and the person asked, "Well, who are you?" And I said, "Kent Rodelius." and they were going to turn us in, but we got out of there in time. Kent never came back after that.
So, on an average year, you do a lot of that.
Yeah. Yep.
How many mushrooms do you find, like pounds, or I don't know how you measure that, but
I got calendars of the last 25 years of what I found, how many pounds I found. I used to start with each one, count every one up, but I said that's too much, so I just jump on the scale. Last couple of years weren't that bad, but last year we maybe got 75 pounds. Year before that, maybe 25. Year before that, we're talking big numbers, over 100 pounds.
and there's 50 dried mushrooms in a pound, right? At least, probably.
Yeah.
So that's a lot.
Yeah,
That's
quite a
lot.
bit.
That's pretty. It's a fun hobby, right?
I've never been invited to go. I don't think I'd make it. They come back with scratches and wounds and cuts, and
The one thing I wouldn't like is the wood ticks.
Yeah.
I suppose they get them too.
Well, I can find them easy enough now. I just got a haircut and I don't have much left, so if I have wood ticks, I'm good.
So, your business years, what would you say, Patty? And this doesn't have to be about your business. It really can be about your life. But what are you most proud of?
Actually, I'm proud of my kids, of course, but I was proud of being the first woman to do quite a few things in the state of Minnesota. And one of them was I was the first woman president of the Minnesota Land Improvement Contractors. And I was the first woman to be a WBE in the state of Minnesota,
Women-owned business, yeah.
a disadvantaged women enterprise. Had my own business. My real name's Mary Lee, so I had my own business called Mary Lee Drainage. And I got a lot of work because I was disadvantaged. I was a woman. And I was the national secretary
For
of
LICA?
for the
National.
National Women. And I was the one, I don't like to brag, but the women never had a lot to say at my time when we were at the national convention. We couldn't be on the board, we couldn't vote. And so here I was, the president of the women's. So I would go to every one of those men's meetings. And when I got on the agenda, then the president would say, "Patty Kringle, are you here again? What do you want this time?" Well, we finally got to be on the board, and we finally got to vote. And that was a big accomplishment.
Yeah,
in those
absolutely.
days.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I was proud of those things.
Could be.
And I enjoyed being president. Harold was not well at that time, but I was asked to run for the national president, but I couldn't because of his health. But my sister and her husband, they helped me a lot with Harold. She's passed now, but he's still alive, and he's still helps in my yard and helps me some. He's 93.
Wow.
So my sister passed away last year, but and I'm I'm still a member of LICA. Don't attend as much as I'd like to. It's kind of hard to go alone. Got to get my kids more involved there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoyed doing everything I did, being on the board, and loved it.
The land improvement contractors time of your life, was that, would you say maybe 20 years that you were really active, or?
Yeah, it was, let's see, I think it was in 85 when I was the, no, wait, when was it? 95, whatever, that I was was the president. And those are our active years. We went on a lot of trips with Leica. That's
Yeah.
when you could take trips. We went
Yeah.
to Venezuela and all over. Now they don't do that.
Yeah.
But it would be nice if they would. I'd be more active probably.
And did you feel like you had garnered a lot of friendships and relationships
Oh yeah,
through that? Yeah.
still. Really, one of my good friends is Roger Ellingston. He's a good friend of mine, and there were many of them. Some of them have passed. Don Loken
Yeah,
is here.
yeah.
He's a good friend.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've kept in touch with them.
Yeah, for sure.
Now I think I'm about due to have lunch with Roger. I told Dick I got to call Roger and go have lunch
Yeah,
together.
yeah, you should.
Yeah, he's a great
should.
guy.
Just made me think of when you said trips. What's your favorite place you've been in the world? Been a lot of places.
Well, we've been to a lot. I mean, I think I liked, I don't think Tim got to go on that one, but we went to Venezuela. That's when these guys were walking around with guns, but that was through Leica. And that was a wonderful trip. Some of them got sick. They went up into the mountains and went into these shacks and had some of their homemade brew, and they got sick. But it wasn't good. But no, that was a nice trip. And there was we went to Hawaii.
Yeah.
That was wonderful.
Yeah.
Didn't you, Dad, say if you had a son that you could take a trip to Hawaii?
Oh, that's when you were born.
Yeah.
Yeah. We waited 10 years for him, and we said to Jesus, we said, Lord, if you would give us a son, we will do our best to give him back to you and train him up in the way that a child is supposed to be brought up.
Yeah. And we'll go to Hawaii.
And then I would like to go to Hawaii. So when I came out of the maternity ward, I had that boy, and I said, we're going to Hawaii. So we did. We went to Hawaii. And he's trained up in the way of the Lord.
Yeah.
So that turned out well for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. It all worked.
It all worked
100%
out.
of it. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
So, life is good. And I think the big thing is you have to keep active. I've had a couple friends since Harold passed away. One was a great dancer, and then he passed away. I don't have very good luck with men. And but I got to tell you about my mother. She was married 4 times. My mother was married 4 times. She was a very good-looking woman and a great dancer. And they never divorced, but she loved every one of them to death. They all died. 4 husbands. I couldn't imagine
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she's in heaven now, of course, but yeah.
Spit and image.
Well, not really. My grandma lived to be 103, so we'll
Really?
see. But
How about
Mom,
your mom?
she was only 85. Yeah, she had breast cancer. I took care of her for 3 years. She's lived
Well,
with us.
85 is a good life, though.
Well, 85, 87 isn't
Yeah.
looking too bad.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Tim, tell me about, I'd heard a story, I don't know much about it, but your dad really wanted to quit chewing tobacco.
Yeah.
Or maybe you want to tell the story, I don't, but
Yeah, he used to chew 3 cans of Copenhagen a day.
day.
And correct me if I'm wrong. These are the stories that they've told me. He wanted to quit so bad he had a hole wore through his lip. He put a picture of Jesus on there, and before he would tap that can, and then take a snooze. He couldn't ever tap that, so he quit cold turkey back in.
He did. That was the
Isn't that
truth. He just
amazing?
I could not hit Jesus.
couldn't hit him.
No, couldn't hit him.
Couldn't hit him. So it went from 3 cans a day to nothing. That's pretty good.
Cold turkey it was too. Yeah.
Yeah, he had the strongest faith, I think, of any person I know. He had every Bible that he had, and we still have them outlined. I don't know how many times Dad read the Bible.
A lot. He'd get up in the night when he was thinking about work, I suppose, and then he'd read the Bible. But he was a Sunday school superintendent and a Sunday school teacher, and and he was also an epileptic, which we lived with forever because he was he fell out of the hay barn, and all the brain cells back here were damaged, and it caused him to have epilepsy. So we lived with that for years, and he took medicine for it, but it was under control.
What do you think, Patty, gives you your zest for life? Like, I mean, it's pretty obvious to all those that meet you, but why is it just who you are, or is there?
I think it's just who I am. I mean, I've always been active, right through high school, cheerleader, jazz band, singer, sang for many funerals and weddings, still sing in the choir. So, I don't know, I enjoy life.
Yeah.
Like to cook, but I like to go out once in a while. Love to dance.
Yeah, I tell you, watching her gives me the inspiration to wake up in the morning. I mean, I look at all the energy that she has. People ask, how do you have so much energy? And it's just because it's in my blood. She'll get up and she'll do. I'll call her, Mom, what are you doing today? Well, just outside working. I'll call you back when I'm done. I mean, is 86 years old and still taking care of, just not giving up, and always positive about things. I'm very proud of my mom, and I think I get a big part of my energy and my ethics from you too. Well, I know I do.
Thank you.
Well, we talk often. I like to say, because I say this because I truly believe it, but on the water table, we talk about what we do, what you guys have done as contractors, and, managing water on the farm, the trickle down of that. When you manage water on the farmer gets more yield. When he gets more yield, he makes more money. When he makes more money, he pays more tax. When he pays more tax, we build communities like Mapleton, Minnesota, and we have a tax base for new schools, and they give to their church project when they're wanting to expand, and new healthcare systems and hospitals are built in these small towns. And I've said that if we've done 125 podcasts, I probably said that on 25 of them, because I love that picture of how important it is what we do on the farm as a farmer, but also helping the farmers manage their risk by water management. But I think the Kringle family is just the essence of that in a real, when you just drill down into Mapleton, Minnesota, and your commitment to your business, but your commitment to your community too. And so talk a little bit about that, Patty, around, I think it's just been second nature to you to be involved in church in the community, and with your own business now and having a catering business. But what do you think about the future, and what's your hope for rural America, rural towns? And because it feels like what you do is you're kind of a dying breed. People aren't willing to give back the way that you have in your life. And when you were young, everybody did that, right?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we didn't think anything of it. Well, I don't know. I don't belong to a lot of clubs per se. I don't play bridge, and I don't gamble or anything like that. But I love my community. We built a new school, which, let's see, we're not going to get into politics, are we? No.
We can, but
no, not today.
okay.
We've just built a new school, and of course, we have some farms, and we pay a lot of taxes, and we're happy that we have a school, I guess. Yes, we're a small town, and actually, our town is shrinking. We only have one restaurant. We need more, and we need more businesses in Mapleton because we're close to Mankato. There's such possibilities there for growth for building homes.
Lot of homes being built, but
Yeah.
the infrastructure of the businesses, there's nothing.
There's nothing there.
We just lost our hardware store.
No, a butcher shop I think is going to go up there, but we need things. And now we were going to get a dollar store, and now they're having problems. You probably saw that on the news last night. They filed bankruptcy,
No,
didn't
I
they?
didn't know that.
Yeah, they were going to build on the lot down there. But there's. I've never run for mayor or anything like that. I'm more involved in the church, and actually, our kids had a garden built right north of the church and dedicated to Harold and I. Last year, was it last year? Yeah, it's a beautiful prayer garden. And people come there and sit, and then they can. We've had services out there,
Sure.
so my kids did that, and I thought that was wonderful.
At what time, at the height, would you say, of in Mapleton, how many restaurants were there in town?
Oh wow, we used to have a Spot Cafe, Mimi's. We probably had 4, 5, or 6 restaurants. 3, 4, 5 bars and a liquor store.
Wow.
1 bank, but it was a nice, prosperous,
Yeah. Yeah.
and a
Grocery store, I'm sure. Maybe don't
3
have that.
grocery stores.
3 there were.
Yeah, dry cleaners. We had a lot of stuff, but
Yeah.
Mankato grew, and I suppose a lot of these people passed on, and they took the railroad out, and then we don't have as much anymore. But
Yeah.
we have a good mayor now. He's a good friend of mine, and he's young and aggressive, and he's working on stuff. And then he comes down. He came down yesterday and talked to me. Well, Patty, what do you think about these flowers? What do you think we should do? And I said, well, I can get them for you reasonable or wholesale and whatever. Anyway, we discussed that. But he's a good friend, and he's working on getting stuff done.
Yeah.
And I like it that he comes and talks to me about it.
Yeah. Well,
Comes for coffee.
he's
once
not
in
only a
while.
young guy, he's a smart guy if he's coming talking to you. So.
He's a good kid. He's
And that's what we
Aggressive,
need, right?
yeah.
Is we need the young people to, carry on the traditions that have been built so strongly by your generation. So,
actually one thing I didn't tell you about, that Mapleton has a curling club. And if you watched the Olympics,
yeah.
my neighbor, Mr. Landsteiner, was on the winning curling team.
Wow. I did, but I wouldn't have remembered that
he
name.
was from Mapleton,
Really?
just down the road from me. And the curling club is just across the street from me.
That's
and
something to be proud of.
We're one of the oldest curling club. We are the oldest curling club in Minnesota.
Really?
And it's active yet. It's active. I used to curl.
Okay.
I was a good curler. Had a team. We won the nationals in Portage, Wisconsin.
Really?
Yeah, I was a skip. Have you ever curled?
No. I mean,
we got to
I've
get you down there.
yeah, I'll come down.
Would ya?
I've done it one time, but I wouldn't even know, what the rules are or anything. But you invite me, and I'll come down.
Oh, you would love it.
I know I would.
Yeah, I'm going to do it.
Okay.
You'd have to learn how the back room works.
Okay.
After
There's
the
back room there.
Yep. Then the spieling starts.
Yeah.
Right in the back room.
Yeah.
We're Scottish town.
Okay.
it's
Tell me
got-
about that. I didn't. That's pretty rare, isn't it, in Minnesota? Scottish.
Well, we have Burns Club night once a year
Okay.
in January, and that's a big deal. Bobby Burns. They wear the kilts and all that stuff.
Because when you think about it, like you get through a lot of Minnesota, it's Scandinavian, Swedish, and Norwegian, and then there's the pockets, and you're pretty close to the pocket of very strong German, and there
Right.
is north of here in Stearns County too. But I was not aware of that, and that's interesting.
It's a big deal, the Burns Club night. And the curling is a very big deal in Mapleton.
What's your nationalities?
I'm Scotch and English.
You're Scotch, and what's the Kringles?
German.
German and no,
Scotch and
you're- yeah,
English.
you're-
German, German.
yeah.
Yeah, German, Scotch, English.
Yeah.
Got a handful.
Yeah, that Harold was 100% German, all German. But my grandpa was the state representative, and my aunt, his daughter, was the first woman page in the state of Minnesota. There's a write-up on that in the paper this week.
Interesting. When would have that been?
1925.
Wow.
So I wasn't born yet,
Yeah.
but
Wow.
I waited for a few years, 13, I guess.
Well, that you can see where some of that lineage comes from of you having a desire to be a leader. So,
Yeah, he was a leader.
and
Yeah.
you too, wanting to.
And my aunt was very active. She was very political, very smart. And they were all gifted musicians. Most of them, yeah, all of them were.
Interesting.
So I think that's where my singing came from,
So, what would you, as you think about your life, and it's been fun to just reminisce and visit for me anyway. I hope you enjoyed this. But
I loved it.
if you could tell your younger self something, what would you tell your younger self?
Well, I don't know. I don't think I'd have changed a whole lot because I just want my kids to remember me as being a good mother.
Mm-hmm.
And I love my grandkids.
Mm-hmm.
And just put God first.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's I didn't have any idea what you were going to say, but I think it's pretty neat that you said I wouldn't change much, because I think you are a unique person and you're very comfortable with who you are, and so that was when you said it was kind of just like obvious that that's what you should say.
Yeah, good point. We talked about that on the way up here, and we both said I wouldn't change a darn thing. I can't think of anything I'd change.
No.
We're pretty happy in the shoes that we wear.
We
Wow.
used to walk to school every day to a mile. I went to country school. Walked a mile every day to school and back home. In the wintertime, we hooked up the toboggan behind the horse's tail and rode to school on Ginger, the horse.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'd ski behind the horse with a rope tied on it. And
On the way home?
Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, would that be like your dad taking you, or would you leave the horse?
No, we
in
rode
it?
the horses, and then we left them at the neighbor's in his barn,
Yeah,
right by the school walls.
Okay.
Yeah.
School was a mile away here.
A mile, just
Yeah.
exactly a mile.
Huh.
We walked every day. I damn near killed one of my friends. So,
Tell me that story.
well, the neighbors lived right across the road from us, and they were, we kids were all the same age. We played together, and we got in a snowball fight on the way home. And that one snowball I had a little ice in it, and hit him in the head, and he got a concussion. And I felt terrible about it, but that's just the way it was.
Yeah,
And we
yeah.
played hard in those days.
Still
Yeah.
good friends right up to this.
Yeah, we graduated together.
Yeah.
Never dated though.
He
So-
probably wanted to till you hit him with the snowball. And then,
No, I don't think he did. Probably, we're just really good friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he comes to my house a couple times a year. I have him over.
Oh, he's still in the area. And,
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
he is. Actually, you would like him. He's very
Political.
political, or he's intelligent,
Yeah. Yeah.
smart.
Yeah.
So his son and grandson hire us to do work. I used to work with David too, and David will come out into the field every now and then, and he'll have to tell me that story. Your mother almost killed me. And every time that he comes out, he has to talk about that.
Well, we were the tough Whitney kids, barefoot and dirty feet and all that, and they were cleaner than we were. Not that we were dirty, but we were just rough. We rode our horses and
So when you went to you mentioned you went to what was the Minnesota?
Minnesota School of Business,
Yeah,
Minneapolis.
that
yeah.
was in Minneapolis. So was that right when you graduated high school?
Yeah,
Or?
well, right away.
So what was that like? What was the change for you like?
Well, that was different living
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
I lived
for
in the
sure.
dormitory, but and then I worked part-time going to college too, but I liked college.
You were already dating Harold then.
I was in love with him. That's why Daddy
Yeah.
sent me off to college.
Yeah, okay.
And Harold graduated from the University of Minnesota Ag School. So
Was he similar in age to you?
no, he was Mother said he was too old for me. He was 4 years older than
Okay.
I was.
Okay.
He wasn't too old for me.
Yeah.
I couldn't help it. Fell in love with him the first time I saw him in 1953, and that's when we met.
Yeah.
We married in 57.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we had a good life.
Yeah.
Not always easy.
No.
But,
No. And that's what made it good, right?
Nobody said it was going to be easy.
No one said it was going to be easy, and if it was easy, you can't appreciate the life you had as much as if you had some challenges along the way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, I really appreciate you guys taking the time to spend with me here for an hour on the Water Table Podcast. And just, what have I missed? What do you want to leave us with?
Oh, I want to tell you something, how impressed I am with your company and how many people I've met through you guys that I still hold very dearly. One of the people, of course, Kent. When my dad passed away, Kent would call me all the time, and he still does. But he knew for some reason when my heart wasn't really feeling well, I would get a call from Kent. We became such good friends, and your drivers, the people we get the pipe from, yourself, have been nothing but wonderful for my company. I trust your product for one thing, but the people, it's amazing, and that helps me not to worry about putting stuff in the ground that's not going to work. I'm not saying any other. Yours is the best though, but I just want to say that the relationships through fishing, I've met a lot of contractors. It's been quite a pleasure to work with you guys, and I appreciate you even asking Mom and I. We're not the biggest tilers, biggest contractors, but you still treat us as we are, and that's a very big appreciation of ours. So thank you.
And yeah, I appreciate it. It's very kind of you to say that. I hope that we can do more of this on the podcast with other contractors. I don't know everyone's story like I know your story, because I know Tim and because Kent has told me a lot. But I just want to say that on here right now, that if there's people listening and they want to tell their story, give us a call and let's do it, because I think it's really a great way for you guys to. Even things that you talked about today, you probably knew them all, Tim, but as we get older, we don't remember everything either. So,
I remember when first time Kent came too.
yeah, tell me that, because that would have probably been about 84.
He was so green. I had him figured out right away. I was really the one that did all the purchasing
Yeah.
for Kringle Brothers, and they had to come to me first because our office was in our home and the men were in the field.
Yeah.
So they had to come to me, and I think I was tough, but he talked me into some tile, and that's how we got started with Prinsco, and we never quit after that. And he would always come to see me when he came.
Yeah.
He got a cup of coffee, or whatever, and then we were on conventions when Kitty and the girls came, and they were just wonderful friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I have a special soft spot for Kent. He's a great guy.
Yeah, you should. He taught me a lot. He was a mentor to me, and I don't know if you know that story, Pat, Patty, about you'll remember part of this, I bet, but of how Kent and I got. I mean, obviously, I came to work at Prinsco. Probably, if I'm close, within a year, 13, 14 years after Kent started. He's older than me, and, I'm this young guy that he wouldn't have had to be kind to me, but he was, and he taught me a lot. But then about a year into that, so he was already good to me, but about a year into that, Kent tore the muscle from his knee off and he had to wear a brace on that leg from his groin all the way to his ankle. Couldn't move that leg for, I don't know, maybe 8 weeks. Well, my job as a young guy became to drive Kent around. And that's probably when I met you. And so that would have been 98.
98?
Yeah. Okay. And that's probably when I met you, 98, 99 in there. I don't remember which year that was. I started in 97, so it was soon after that. And I just learned so much during at the time. I thought, okay, well, they're asking me to do this. This is what I'll do. And I didn't have any problem with it. But looking back, just the conversations that happened about life and about business and about parenting and about, his kids were in the throes of teenage years and junior high years at the time. So I was just listening and learning, not knowing how much I was going to learn, So it was really a neat experience for me.
Nice to go around with it.
Yeah, to be able to do that.
How old are you, Jamie?
I'm 53.
Okay. Because I remember first meeting you, too. Kent called, I was in the office, and he said, I'm bringing my boss over. And then you came in the door, and I said, where's your boss? Because you look so much younger.
Well, and I was.
Yeah, you were young. So then I figured out.
I'd finally grown into the looks.
Yeah. So, that was 98.
That'd have been, 90, could have been 97, but I think when I was spending more time with Kent would have been 98, 99.
Oh, that's when I was president of Lycoming.
Yeah, okay.
Right. How about you? Is your mom and dad still here?
Yeah. And my father is 86, same as you.
He's my age.
Yeah, he'll be 87 in June. And my mother's a few years younger.
Okay.
So not much. She's 80. I'm saying this on air now. She's 83, I think.
Okay. Is your dad involved in the business some?
He still is interested. He isn't as active as he was, but he still asks questions often and is still very active like you.
I'd like to meet them sometime.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll bring them on down.
We'll come down and have some coffee and some mushrooms. So
boy, that would be nice, wouldn't it?
When Tim was talking a little bit ago and said some really kind words about Prinsco, it's just when you have conversations like this or when you know people, it's so evident to me why the relationship between the two companies have been good, and it's just a shared value system is all it is Prinsco's values, our stated values that I hope all of our employees know, and I think most of them do, are integrity, hard work, relationships, and humility. And when I look at the Kringle family, all those things are very important to you guys, and they started with you and Harold. You guys are the ones who really instilled those values, not only in your children, but in your company. So well done, and that's why we can have fun, smiling, and reminiscing about the past together, because we have shared values that we're going to carry into the future together. So
good.
Makes sense.
Well done, good and faithful servant.
Well, thank you. Thanks for joining me today on the Water Table.
Yep,
Thank
thanks
you
for
for
having
having
us.
us.
It was real fun.
Yep.